Hi, everybody. My name is Allison Christensen. I'm with the Moving to Work office at HUD. Just want to start by thanking everyone so much for joining us here today. We are here to talk about the credit building option of the asset building cohort. So I hope that's why you joined us today. And we have some great resources with us today. We have ICF, who has a lot of experts on asset building and how to help your residents. And we also have some firsthand knowledge from Clackamas County, who's already been doing these kind of activities for quite some time. So a great firsthand experience to learn from there. And we have some really cool interactive features where we're hoping you can just participate and learn from each other as a community of practice. We have Mural Board, which is a new resource that we'll be using today. So it'll take a little bit of time to get used to, but we think it's a great tool to help you share with one another about your questions and different things that you're doing, ideas of how to address some of the challenges you're facing. So hope it's a great opportunity for you to learn from each other and to learn from some of the experts we have lined up to talk to you. So with that, I will pass it over to ICF.
Great. Thank you so much, Allison. And as Allison said, today is really the moment where the energy shifts towards uh, you becoming resources for each other, because each of you is charting some new territory in your pursuit of the rent reporting for credit building program. And we're really excited to start this community of practice because the experts are really in the virtual room with us. Each of you is an expert that's bringing not only your questions, but also your experience and your ideas. And we're excited to go on this journey together. Next slide, please. You just heard from Allison Christensen at the MTW office, and I'm Ben Miller. I'm from ICF, where I'm Senior Director for Community Development, and I've specialized in asset building and financial capability programs. So for the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, for the FDIC, and for some other agencies. I've been working for about 20 years in community development, and for the past 15 years or so, really focusing on the financial capability area. And I'm really excited that we have with us today Devin Stubblefield, who's a nationally recognized expert in a whole variety of financial capability programs and initiatives. Among his areas of specialization is credit building. So excited to learn from Devin today about the rent reporting and credit building topics. We're also really fortunate today because we have some experts from Clackamas County with us, and Elizabeth Miller and Jamila Hart from the Housing Authority of Clackamas County are going to be sharing with us their experiences. They pioneered rent reporting and credit building in Clackamas County. So we'll hear their firsthand testimonials and experiences and their lessons learned and promising practices that they accumulated along the way. Next slide, please. Let's take an overview of what we're going to do together today. Allison already mentioned Mural, and Mural is a virtual whiteboard, as they call it. We'll introduce that to you in just a few minutes, and it is designed to facilitate sharing on a call like this, almost as if we were in the same room with a big whiteboard and we could all put Post-its and stickies on the whiteboard to share ideas. That's what Mural tries to do and creates a space for here in a virtual environment. We'll practice with Mural in a moment. For after we get comfortable in Mural, we'll hear from Devin about rent reporting for credit building program characteristics. We'll look at what are the nuts and bolts of this rent reporting program that each of you is going to pursue and put together. I'm getting a little bit of background noise. I think we may need to mute one or more of the mics. We'll also hear from Devin about reporting mechanisms. And Devin will be talking about the ways in which information on people's payment of rent can get to the credit reporting bureaus and those important choices that each of you will have to evaluate and choose from among. We already teased that we'll have some colleagues from Clackamas County as guest speakers today and hear about their experience. And then we'll get back into Mural and really roll up our sleeves and start thinking about that important decision of choosing your reporting mechanism and unpacking what will it take to run this program? What are the tasks involved? What are the things that people will need to do? Who needs to do it? What will they need to do those tasks well? As we wrap up, we'll talk about a couple of supplementary resources that can really add value to your rent reporting program. And we have time for questions and answers. We may also take some questions and answers as we go through today. So a great way to submit a question for us to pose to uh, presenters is to type that question into chat, and we'll keep a running list of those and field those. So with that, Devin, I'll turn it over to you to take us into rent reporting for credit building program characteristics.
Thank you, Ben. And I want to say good afternoon to everyone. And I'm excited that we're all here today to talk about this. Rent reporting for credit building. This is a great topic because, as you all know, in order for us to create opportunities for financial inclusion and upward mobility, we recognize that credit plays a vital role. And many residents face challenges in establishing or even improving their credit scores, which can really perpetuate cycles of financial instability and hinder their progress towards self-sufficiency. So in this section, and for the time that we have together today, we're going to discuss the rent reporting for credit building program and its characteristics. And we're also going to do a comparison of each and give everyone an opportunity to chime in. So as Ben mentioned, we're going to be going back over into the mural later on in our session today to really give everyone an opportunity to express your thoughts. And by the way, if there's something that comes up during this portion of the presentation that you have a thought about or a question for, then simply put it in the chat and the team will see that, and then we can possibly address that at that time. So feel free to interact with us in that manner. Next slide, please. So here are 3 credit reporting program goals, which together will have a positive impact on program participants. And starting with the first one, where we're building credit for program participants, because by reporting their rent payments to credit bureaus, residents can demonstrate their financial responsibility and create a positive credit profile just by virtue of it being in place. Now, in terms of improving credit visibility of program participants, many residents have limited credit histories and often remain invisible to traditional credit scoring systems. And we know that there are many people that don't have any credit scores or anything that comes up on their credit. And so rent reporting can bring their payment history into the credit landscape. And what that does, that makes their financial activities more visible within the 3 credit reporting agencies. Now, this increased visibility can lead to fair evaluation of creditworthiness and better access to financial products and services. And then finally, the third goal is to raise credit scores of program participants. And if we get consistent reporting of on-time rent payments, this is what can positively impact their credit scores by showcasing a track record of responsible financial behavior. Because we know when people pay their rent on time, that's a good thing. For a lot of people, that's a big thing, a big deal, especially if they've had some things going on in the past and they know that this is an opportunity for them to actually build credit by just simply paying on time. That is huge for a lot of people. And so these 3 goals over time can actually enhance financial opportunities, increase access to additional credit, and contribute to long-term financial stability and upward mobility. So lots of benefits to this credit reporting program. Next slide. So when we talk about the actual requirements, there's a few things that we want to make note of. And first of all, to report rent payment information, it's got to be around some time intervals. And as you can see on the slide, it's got to be reported to at least one of the 3 credit reporting bureaus, and of course on a regular basis, and for at least 24 consecutive months. And I want to make note here that when we talk about when payments are late, under current credit reporting practices, a late payment is considered if it's made more than 30 days after the due date. So that is a specific characteristics of the credit reporting bureaus. Now, in addition to that, when we offer credit reporting program during the 24-month implementation period, we want a minimum of 25 public housing households and a maximum of 50% of public housing households. So that's kind of the range of what we're looking for participation. Next slide. Also, we wanted to bring a little bit of clarification around full file reporting versus positive only reporting. Now, of course, full file reporting, that is when the complete picture is being reported. We're talking about on-time payments, late payments, missed payments. All of that is what happens with full file reporting. With positive only reporting, it really is only the on-time payments that's really getting recorded. Now, positive only reporting may be less costly and time consuming than full file reporting, as it requires much less data to be collected and reported. And it still may have a positive impact on a resident's credit score by demonstrating their ability to make on-time payments. But I want to make a notation here that when it comes to the selection notice, it says PHAs must seek to report all payments, but positive only reporting is much more common among credit reporting services. Therefore, HUD doesn't consider positive only reporting to be a conflict with the selection notice. PHAs are welcome to explore options for doing full file reporting, but the limited options may make it necessary to go with positive only. So we just wanted to make sure that you all understood that from this perspective. And so there you have it. Next slide, please. We will now review the various reporting mechanisms. Now, these are ways information on resident rent payments can be reported to the credit reporting bureaus. Next slide. So we're going to go through these three options, and we're going to explore the advantages and other considerations for these three. We got paid service integrated into PHA systems. We've got direct reporting by PHAs to credit bureaus and renter facilitated reporting. And later on in the session, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to hear from you about where you are in your decision-making process on reporting mechanisms and what factors may be important to you. Next slide. Now, when we look at this, we want to keep in mind some key considerations, and this is across the board. And so what I'm going to do is briefly kind of give you an explanation of each of these that you see on your screen, starting with cost. And the cost of rent reporting options can vary widely depending upon the provider and the services being offered. Some providers charge a flat fee, while others may charge a percentage of the rent payment. It's important to consider the cost of rent reporting options in relation to the benefits that it provides. And then we have efficiency. Rent reporting options should be efficient and easy for both the residents and the PHAs. So you want to consider factors such as ease of implementation, ease of use for the residents, and the amount of time and resources required to maintain the system. The next one, administrative burden on staff. This is all about the rent reporting options should not create an undue administrative burden on your staff. We want to consider the factors in terms of the amount of time and resources required to implement and maintain the system, as well as the level of staff training that may be required. And then we have accuracy. Rent reporting options must be accurate and reliable. Consider factors such as the provider's track record and reputation for accuracy, as well as any options in place to correct any errors. Security. Rent reporting options should be secure and protect residents' personal and financial information. Consider factors such as data encryption, compliance with data safety regulations, and the provider's history of data breaches or security incidents. And then finally, resident privacy. Rent reporting options must follow applicable privacy laws and regulations and should not disclose residents' personal information without their consent. So these are the considerations that we wanted to put out here as we look at these options. Next slide, please. So our first option is the paid service integrated into PHA systems. So now we're talking about software that automatically reports to credit bureaus. And this also could be a service that facilitates the payment of rent via an app or some sort of online portal where residents will log in and pay their rent electronically each month. And in addition to that core function, the service reports information on the payment of rent to one or more credit reporting bureaus. So this is just one of the ways a paid service can operate. There are other models. Next slide. So when we talk about some advantages and considerations here, let's look at this, because this is what we want you all to be thinking about as we go into our discussion later on. Some of these considerations or advantages may help you in your decision-making process. But first of all, let's look at the advantages, and you see the 4: efficient, accurate, compliant, and special features. So when we talk about efficiency, we're talking about the staff time spent on reporting rent payments. Is it quick? Is it easy? Is it simple to do? Or is it going to take a lot of time? Accurate. Have road-tested systems for accurate reporting to credit bureaus. And I don't have to tell you all how important it is for that data to be accurate, because we want to make sure that the information that's going on the credit reports is exactly what's happening. And then, of course, compliance. We want to meet legal requirements for reporting credit information under the Fair Credit Reporting Act and other laws. And then special features. Some of them may offer additional services such as reporting and analytics. Depending upon what's important to you, then you can select any of those special features that may be offered. But in terms of considerations, now, of course, different paid services have options that have different costs. So if cost is a major consideration, then we may want to take a close look at this. And then they may require integrating with or even replacing existing systems. So there are a variety of services out there, but they have different ways of connecting to the rent payment process and different levels of integration with the systems you may already have up and running, or maybe one that you actually have to get going forward. Next slide. Now, some potential special features that you can, again, these are optional that you can select. You see we have automated payment reminders. The system can be configured to send automated reminders to residents about their upcoming rent payments. Now, these reminders can be scheduled at specific intervals and sent via email or text message, ensuring that everyone stays informed and prompt with their payments. And of course, grace periods. Now, the solution can incorporate grace periods, allowing the residents a specified additional time to make their rent payments without incurring late fees or penalties. So that is very prominent. So they know exactly what that grace period is. And this feature provides flexibility and acknowledges potential delays in payment. But then we have late fee management, where the system can automatically calculate and apply late fees when rent payments are not received within the designated time frame. Now, of course, property managers can define the late fee amount and the grace period before fees are assessed. And this feature ensures consistent application of late fees and streamlines the process across the board. Then in terms of credit reporting, some of the payment processor add-ons or third-party providers may offer credit reporting functionalities. And these features enable the reporting of rent payment data to credit bureaus, allowing the residents to build up their credit history and improve their scores over time. So it's the implementation of these features which can contribute to a smoother payment process, improve resident relations, and increase efficiency for PHAs. Next slide. Now, reporting mechanisms around PHAs to credit bureaus. So this is another option that allows the PHA to actually report the rent payments themselves, providing a direct line of communication with the credit bureaus. So PHAs, though, they must get credentialed to become a data furnisher to the credit bureaus. Now, the credentialing process involves meeting specific requirements set by the credit bureaus, such as data accuracy, data security, and compliance with regulatory standards. In addition to that, PHAs will compile rent payment information using software integration or manual data collection. Depending upon what the setup is, it's going to be one or the other or a combination of both. If software integration is not feasible, manual data collection methods still can be effective. So PHAs must implement robust processes to ensure accurate and complete data capture, such as a dedicated staff responsible for data entry, regular data audits, and validation checks. Also, there is a need to establish a standardized process for reporting rent payments and handling issues or errors that may arise. This includes defining roles and responsibilities, establishing clear guidelines for data submission, and setting timelines for reporting. Now, it's important to have procedures in place for handling issues or errors that may arise. So again, this is when the PHAs are doing this direct to the credit bureau. And so all these other factors come into play when we choose this option. Next slide. Now, looking at the advantages and considerations for this particular mechanism, on the advantage side, a couple of things. Number one, this is really cool that the PHA staff of knowledge of credit building can be enhanced by simply choosing this option. Then it does not require paying for a separate service. What's great about this is that as everyone involved is getting more knowledgeable about credit building, credit reporting, because ultimately there's going to be questions that may come in from the residents about how this all works. And so when you're doing it yourselves, you have that direct line of communication directly with the credit bureaus, and it could just really help increase the staff capacity around this particular thing. Now, other considerations. Now, of course, it may require an upfront investment in terms of your configuration of the rent payment, implementing the data validation processes, and other items around that. And then it could be potentially complex to navigate. So just depending upon the setup, it may take a little bit of time to get used to that. But then you also have to become certified as a data furnisher, and that's an involved process. So these are the things to consider when we're talking about direct reporting by PHAs to credit bureaus. Next slide. Now this one, renter facilitated reporting. This option requires residents themselves to take a very active role in reporting their rent payments to credit bureaus. Now, this is of the options here, this is kind of more or less in their control because they have to enroll in the rent reporting program through an app or an online platform. They also give their consent to participate. They also have to link their bank account information to the rent reporting app or online platform. And hopefully, people will be comfortable with that, but that's exactly what has to happen. And then regularly accesses and retrieves their rent payment data for reporting purposes. So in other words, they can take a look at what's going on. So again, they are right there with this as they're making their rent reporting and they're looking at the data. It helps them to kind of see what's going on. But at the same time, it analyzes transaction data related to rent payments and reports information about rent payments to the credit reporting bureaus. Now, these services are typically paid for by the residents. Now, in some cases, PHAs will need to find a way to pay for the service on behalf of the residents. And so that is something that you want to consider in terms of making sure that this is free to them if you're going to be paying for it. But the point is, it just gives them this other level of control. Now, when we look at the next slide, we're going to look at some of the advantages and considerations with this particular option. And for you, the PHAs, it is a lower cost option, but there are some considerations that we have to keep in mind. Number one, ensuring that the residents enroll, right? And that they take the steps that they need to do to understand how to do all this stuff, right? And to track it, follow up, all of those things. Then there could be some missing data from participants in the program who don't take the required steps, or they might be encountering challenges that they're not telling anybody about. And typically, these services are paid for by renters, requiring the PHAs to find a way to pay on behalf of renters. So those are considerations for that. And so what I want to do right now is just pause for a moment and see if anyone has any questions or any thoughts on what we have said so far about these particular options. Okay, I don't see anything in the chat. All right, so at this point in time, I'm going to turn it back over to Ben, who's going to introduce our guest speakers. Ben.
Thank you so much, Devin. Really appreciate that, and very helpful background that'll really set the stage for the applied work that we do together later on in the session. But before we do that, we're really fortunate today because we have two colleagues from the Housing Authority of Clackamas County in Oregon that are here to share their experience because they've been pioneers in this effort. They've launched a rent reporting and credit building program and are here to share with us what they learned, what they experienced, what worked really well for them as well. So I'd like to invite Elizabeth Miller, Resident Services Supervisor, to deliver a presentation and also make sure to acknowledge and share that Jamila Hart, Resident Services Coordinator, has been a person who's deeply involved in making this program run. So Elizabeth, please go ahead and share your video and unmute, and we're eager to hear about your experience.
So again, I'm Elizabeth Miller, Housing Authority of Clackamas County. I supervise the resident services team here at the Housing Authority, and I'm excited to get to talk to you guys about how we started our rent reporting program, gosh, 2019. So it's been almost 4 years, and it's done great things for our residents. So just to give you a sense of Clackamas County, we're about 30 minutes from Portland, Oregon, and we're a pretty big county. We have almost 2,000 square miles, a mix of urban and rural. We have 445 public housing units, which is where we have really kind of focused our rent reporting program on. We're approximately 60 staff. Our public housing properties, we have 3 20-acre sites. Each of those 20-acre sites houses about 100 households. Plus we have 145 scattered throughout the county. You can tell some of the more concentrated areas are the more urban areas. But the scattered sites are single family units. They tend to be bigger families, some of them duplexes, triplexes. And then we have a resident services team that has grown. We started out with just one. Jamila's on here. Jamila used to be the only one, and we've grown that team to 13, where we stand right now. So just focusing more on mission and providing those supports to residents. Just to throw out some resident demographics, so 40% of the households we serve are elderly and or disabled, many of them on fixed income. Predominantly white, we're at 87%. As we pull more from our wait list, we're seeing a more diverse population. Resident demographics continued. So we've got about our average household income is about $16,000 per year. And you can see over half of that is Social Security or SSI, with 24% being wages. And the resident services team, we have one person, that's Jamila, who does the Ross grant. We have 2 staff that handle the family self-sufficiency grant. We run an individual development account program with match savings. IDA is what we call that. And those savings, helping residents develop savings goals around home ownership, education, and transportation. We do some financial education. We also do referrals with our community partners on credit counseling and workforce related programs. So we back in late 2018, early 2019, we applied for a grant through Prosperity Now and Credit Builders Alliance. And it was a small grant. I mean, I think it was like $5,000 to help us sort of get up and running with a rent reporting program. And there were, I think, 3 housing authorities that were part of that cohort. And they really helped us kind of walk us through the steps on developing, similar to what we're doing here. And, helped give us some templates and some pointers. Are we, the kind of the first decision point was, are we going to self-report directly to the credit bureaus, or are we going to hire a third party? Then there weren't a lot of options in terms of companies that offered this. There also wasn't an app that I knew of that residents could use themselves. So we were kind of in the early stages of this. So we ended up deciding to go with Isuzu, who's our third party report, and they report to all 3 credit bureaus. So we provide the data on a monthly basis, and then they do the direct reporting. And that's been a good partnership for us. I did not want to go through the accreditation process to do the direct report with the credit bureaus. That seemed, like Devin was saying, kind of complex, and we were sort of new, and so we didn't want to jump through those hoops. So kind of our steps were, we sat down as a team, as an implementation team, and we developed our processes and procedures, and you'll kind of see what an example of a workflow we developed. What are staff's roles and responsibilities? Who's going to be doing the actual enrollment? Who's going to be running the monthly reports, checking to see if rents are paid on time? And then, what does that enrollment process look like? What forms? There's an authorization form. This is an opt-in program. So making sure before residents sign up, they know what they're consenting to. So we've developed that enrollment process, and then we started with outreach and marketing to residents. And we were really growing the program, having a lot of success. And we had a goal, I think, of 60 enrollments. And then, COVID hit, and we'll kind of talk about that in the next slide. And then we monitor every month. We're looking at rents, adjusting their, how much they're paying, reporting that to Isuzu. Some of the challenges, staff capacity is always a challenge. This is an added program, so making sure that we have capacity within our team to stand this up and to report, run those reports and check in with and meet with people on new enrollments. Just establishing those credit counseling partners. If we're pulling a credit report with a resident and they've got high debt, we want to get them to a credit counseling partner. The decision around third-party reporting. When we first started this program, Isuzu was building it as we were developing our policies. We hadn't started enrollment yet, but they were building the program for us. And now they've gone leaps and bounds. They have a whole web platform and data, and they've done amazing work. Just determining eligibility too. Just pulling, part of the process for enrollment is pulling rent ledgers and making sure, we're enrolling folks that are good candidates. They've made 3 months of on-time payments. They're paying a minimum of $10 in rent every month. So just working through what that kind of a good eligible candidate resident would be. And then, I'm going to jump to maintaining the program during COVID. So that kind of COVID sort of spurred us into, oh gosh, we need to look at our policies. People weren't paying their rent. They weren't able to, jobs were lost. And so we made a decision to, if somebody paid late or didn't pay at all, we weren't going to report that to the credit bureaus. So we changed our policies to reflect that those folks would be disenrolled. And then, so I learned this from Devin, it's called positive only reporting. So that's what we are. We're a positive only reporting housing authority. And if residents are able to make 3 months of on-time payments, they can re-enroll in the rent reporting program. So here's a copy of the workflow we developed. This was helpful for us because there's lots of layers. There's property management, there's occupancy specialists, there's the resident services team that's enrolling folks. So just making sure everyone is at the table and involved, and what their role is in all of this. So this is the workflow we developed. So these are just some of the outcomes. I want to make sure there's time for questions, so I'll just blow through these. We've grown the program back up to 50 with a goal of 60, and we're going to grow this program. We're expanding it with the Move to Work asset building program. We're hoping to expand that to some of our project-based voucher units where we have third-party property managers. So that's our next step. So in 2014, our average starting credit score was 651. Today, our average credit score is 689. So that's a 38-point improvement, which is huge. Let's see, what else do I have? That's it. Questions? This even keeps track of me. So I think we have maybe a minute or two for questions.
Yeah, we sure do. Please do. If you have a question for Clackamas County, please do type that in chat, or you can also unmute and ask a question. Elizabeth, while people are thinking of their questions and typing them in, I had one to start. Can you speak a little bit to what is involved on a month-to-month basis in terms of getting Isuzu the information it needs to then share rent payment information with the 3 credit reporting bureaus?
So when we first started the rent reporting program, we had HAB software, and there was no integration. So it was a matter of running, having an Excel spreadsheet with all the data points, and then, looking at HAB every month and making sure rents were updated, the amounts folks were paying, and that folks were paying on time. So it's a really manual process. We've now switched to Yardi. We're at the kind of tail end of implementing Yardi. And there is an integration component that we've opted out of. Isuzu can grab the data out of Yardi if we authorize them to. But because we disenroll folks if they pay rent late or don't pay rent at all, that we still wanted control of that data and that submission. So we're still doing it manual. I know that it's taking less time through Yardi just because it's a quicker, more efficient system. But it is still manual.
Great, really helpful. We have a couple questions that came in. One has to do with, will Clackamas County be able to share these slides? And I can say that yes,
Yep.
we will. Elizabeth, you're kind enough to share these slides with us, and we will be able to share those with participants today. So Larry asks a question: when you send info to Isuzu, do you list one person in a household or multiple people? If one, which person do you list?
So when we sit with a family, maybe that family has an adult child and a partner, we enroll anyone who wants to be enrolled that's 18 or over. So one of the data points showed, kind of where the ages are that we have enrolled. But yeah, we're able to enroll anyone who wants to be enrolled. So a lot of times that looks like, 3 adults in a household or 2 adults in a household, but they all have to sign that authorization.
Great question. Thanks, Elizabeth, for fielding that. Other questions for Clackamas County? And this won't be your last chance. We do have a Q&A portion of the webinar at the end. So keep those questions coming. Well, thank you so much, Elizabeth. Thank you for being a pioneer in this area. Oh, we do have a hand raised from Sandra. Sandra, would you like to unmute and share your question?
Hi, sorry. Yeah, I did just meet with Isuzu yesterday, and they did say they can report on up to 7 families, I mean 7 household members per household.
Mm.
So even though it's one rent that they're paying, there could be up to 7
Yeah, just
household
great.
members
Thank you for
getting
sharing that.
that positive reporting. Yeah, I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah,
That's great.
really helpful. Terrific. Well, thank you, Elizabeth. Appreciate the presentation, and thank you and to you and Jamila and others, in Clackamas County for really pioneering work in this area.
Thanks.
All right. Before we do our next segment, which is going to be going back into Mural and working together in that platform, Allison, we had a question come in from Matt Clark that we were hoping you could weigh in on and field. Matt's question is, if we are part of the option C portion of MTW, do we still need to cap it at 50% of public housing authority residents, public housing residents, or can we go above that? And I believe Matt's referring to the PHA designed option that isn't the opt-out savings program or the credit building program. It's a third option. It's more flexible.
Yeah, correct. Thank you for that question. And unfortunately, I know people don't like hearing this from HUD, but it's kind of a it depends answer. So you are in that option C, which gives a lot more flexibility. The reason for that 50% number is so that we can ensure the sample size has a large enough control group so that we can evaluate the results of your interventions. So it kind of depends on option C. How you're fitting into the evaluation and those conversations you had with MEF. So if you could just send an email to that asset building at asset building cohort at hud.gov, we can set up some time to look at your specific situation and get back to you. We always like to try and make things work as much as possible for the housing authority, and it's great that your PHA is so ambitious to offer these resources to a larger portion of your community, and we want to support that, while also fitting in with the needs of the evaluation. So since you are that option C, there is some additional flexibility there, and we'll just talk to you, kind of specifically on how to go about that.
Thanks, Allison. Thanks, Matt, for that question. And let's advance our slides. Devin, we've got a couple minutes to hear about resources, and this is even more important now, knowing what people are thinking about from our mural work.
Yes, thanks, Ben. Let's go to the next slide. And the FDIC and the CFPB have some great tools that will help with this, because we realize that most frontline staff are not trained to be financial empowerment experts, but we realize that they need information, non-biased, that they can share. And I totally got that sentiment from the answers that we got from the mural. And so in these particular resources, they can really put you all in a position to support residents by offering them these particular publications. And frontline staff are obviously going to need these resources, and in each of these websites. Now, these links are live, so when you get the copy of the slide deck, you'll be able to click those and it'll take you directly to those links. The first one is the Money Smart for Adults Module 6 that talks about credit reports and scores. That curriculum is meant to serve anyone who wants to teach or learn about financial education. It includes a participant guide, instructor guide, and PowerPoint slides. And so some takeaways for households would include a general process for understanding other things about their money, but also to drill completely down on the credit and how that works. And then module 6 is really where that comes into play. And there's also a module in there about managing credit cards. And then the CFPB Your Money, Your Goals Financial Empowerment Toolkit has additional tools as well that really delve deeply into what people can do. Remember, we mentioned credit invisibility earlier in today's session, there is information about that, so where people can really understand the process of getting their information onto a credit report so that they can actually move forward and begin to build credit. And again, some of those questions that will come up will be able to be answered by virtue of using both of these resources. So please, by all means, get a copy of these publications and share them with PHAs and the residents.
Thanks, Devin. I recall the Money Smart curriculum is set up really with pretty robustly scripted talking points for the instructor to use.
Yeah.
So to me, it's really achievable for a PHA staff member that today isn't necessarily a credit expert to study up and become a person who can train others on that module of Money Smart for Adults. Maybe delivering that module to others, other staff members at the PHA could be the trial run, and then that person could also train residents in credit reports and scores as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Ben. And also what I want to say is that both of these publications are unique in that it really is designed to also help the practitioner learn or to increase knowledge where they feel like they may not be strong. So it's a great resource for everybody. So strongly encourage you to get those.
Great. Okay, well, we have, I think we can go on to the next slide. We have time for questions and answers, so please do either come off of mute by clicking on the mute and unmute button at the bottom of your screen, or type us a question in chat. We have a couple minutes here and would love to field your questions. And we can also ask questions of our colleagues at HUD, colleagues at Clackamas County. So if you had questions for either of them, this is a great time. Great. Thanks, Melissa. Glad it's been valuable. Well, it's not too late, but let's go ahead and move to the next slide. But if a question does occur to somebody, come off of mute, type it in chat. We're ready to take those. We will be having some upcoming asset building community of practice sessions building off of today. So keep your eyes on your inbox. We'll get more information over to you soon about what's next, but currently we're thinking that the next session may focus on outreach. How do you reach out to and market this opportunity for residents and communicate about it? And we'll have additional quarterly sessions that we'll set dates for and share with you in the coming weeks and months. Next slide. We wanted to thank you for being with us today, and I wanted to invite Allison, if you had any parting words for our colleagues, but I wanted to thank everybody for your participation today, and wanted to thank our colleagues in Clackamas County for sharing their experience. That was extremely helpful.
Yes, great. Thank you, Ben, and thank you, Devin, both for your expertise and in leading us today in this discussion. I thought it was a lot of great ideas, get people thinking about things, so I think it went great. And thanks again to Elizabeth and Jamila in Clackamas County. I think you guys have, this firsthand experience is so useful to the others in this cohort, so we're really lucky to have you here today and in the asset building cohort in general. So thank you for sharing with us today. And thank you everybody for joining and for your participation in the mural board. I know using a new tool can be a little bit difficult sometimes, but we appreciate you guys jumping in and using the tool. We think it, could provide value in future sessions as well. So, you won't be starting from scratch every time now that you have a little bit of experience. And then just finally wanted to say, these community of practice sessions are really for you all to learn from each other. And we want to be providing content and creating space for you to talk about the things and issues that are important to your agencies as you're implementing these asset building activities. So please, let us know if there's any topics that you'd like to cover. If you'd like to present anything that's been happening at your agencies or experiences you've been having, we'd love to. Did I cut out at the end there?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Maybe just repeat your last sentence or two.
Sorry. Yeah, just wanted to say thank you and let us know if you have any ideas for future sessions. We would love to hear them.